right here. It is the only property that is from the original farm that is still actually owned by a Wilson.
Was this a farm building at one time?
No.
It was built as a store.
No. This was the first piece of property on this corner that my grandparents, John and Jesse, that lived in the little house right here at the end of Hamburg Mill Road.
Yep.
That's where my dad was raised.
Uh-huh.
So this was the first piece of property that they were deeded in 1910 when they married. Now, these are my dad's parents.
They married in 1910, and this
1910.
was their property.
This was their first piece of property.
First piece of property.
Yeah, that they were deeded in 1910. So they built a farmhouse behind the store on Jeremy's property that burned when my dad was like 8 or 10 years old. It was a rental property at that time because they had already moved across the road. Grandpa had already built that smaller house across the road. When they were raising the large family of 11, they lived in the farmhouse. But then as the older ones married and moved on, Grandpa built that little small house right there. And him and Grandma and Uncle Clyde and Dad moved across the road. That was the only ones that was in Burkather.
It was Shorty the youngest?
He was the youngest of 11.
They all gone now?
Huh?
Are they all gone now?
Yeah, he was the last one. So, they moved across the road. He was 8 or 10, somewhere right in that range. And they rented this house out to families that had, that needed a place, that had large families that needed the rooms. And so the Kellums lived there. The Christophers lived there at one time. Several different families from around here rented it from Grandpa.
Your grandparents were Jesse and
John.
Jesse and John.
Yeah.
Jesse being the lady.
Yes. And I give my son that name. Grandma was Jessie, but my son is Jesse. It's a different spelling for a man and a woman.
My dad was spelled like that too.
Yeah.
So were they farmers too?
Yes.
They were
My
farmers as well.
my grandfather was a strawberry farmer.
Okay.
And the Tatums and the community over here at Collins Grove, they would come and pick strawberries for my grandfather to sell. And he would pay. I think that it was a nickel for a carton.
Really?
Wow.
We paid him a nickel a carton.
Wow.
To pick strawberries for him. But, even now, in my yard over there, wild strawberries. And Todd, my next door neighbor, wild strawberries. Because everything around here was strawberries. Now, he had a garden, for family purposes. But his business was strawberries. That's what he did.
How many acres did he have?
The
whole farm? The whole farm?
Well, I guess pretty much. Where Cynthia Brown lives. Do y'all know Cynthia Brown?
No.
You
That
need
Mark?
to.
Is that Mark's family?
No relation.
Okay.
Cynthia Brown lives next door to Grandma's house.
Okay.
She is a folk storyteller.
I'll write that
You
down.
need to talk to Miss Brown.
Okay.
She knows
She was also the art teacher at
Summerfield for years and years. But she does ghost stories in the graveyard.
Oh, really?
For what is that building downtown that hosts a lot of weddings and
Oh, I know.
what is the name of that building? Starts with a B. She goes down there every year. She goes to the Children's Museum.
Mm-hmm.
The Children's Museum has a graveyard.
Yes, it was very, very nice.
And she'll go and get I'm serious.
So where's she live on Hamburg Mill Road?
No, she lives right here on Pleasant Ridge.
Okay.
Cynthia Brown.
What's her first name?
Cynthia.
Cynthia.
And so she does ghost stories in the graveyard.
Wow.
How old a gal is she?
70.
Young,
And
young.
she's got Facebook. You need to look her up.
Okay.
Her and her late husband Fred would dress up at Christmas and you couldn't tell that they wasn't Santa Claus and Miss Claus.
Yeah.
He had that white long beard, and wonderful people. They're
Okay.
both of them. But he passed away year before last. Year before last.
Okay.
But she has got some unbelievable stories.
We gotta talk to her.
Folk stories, graveyard stories, about stuff here in the neighborhood.
Is she a member of this church, man?
No. But in her yard, let me get back to my story. In her yard, you can find strawberry plants. Just wild strawberries that,
That's left over from,
my grandpa's been gone since he died in 1953.
I have them in my yard. I'm picking them all the time.
Yeah,
All the time.
just wild strawberries.
I used to have radishes too. Radishes I'd pick out and strawberries all the time.
didn't he grow tobacco? Everybody grew tobacco.
No.
Your grandparents didn't grow tobacco?
No, he was a strawberry farmer. That's what he did.
That's amazing.
And he raised a family on that, which back then you could.
Yeah.
Because that was something everybody else was raising tobacco and corn, and and he,
Was he the only one that raised
as
strawberries?
far as I know, he was.
Oh, that's amazing.
I hadn't heard anybody else say that they knew anybody else that did, but that's what he did, and different ones would come and buy strawberries from him because that's what he did.
You told me one time that Jesse started this store because...
No,
No.
Jesse didn't.
Mm-mm.
No,
His Mark,
most people
her dad's
thought
brother.
most people thought that Richard and Hallie was Dad's. Well, let me keep
Yeah.
going. All right.
Go
So
ahead.
1910.
Yeah.
So then Uncle Richard was born in 1911.
Was he the oldest?
He was the oldest, and so him and Aunt Hallie were married 5 years already when Dad was born. So they got married Dad was born in 35. They got married in 1930. So,
Yeah.
and most people actually thought that Hallie and Richard were Dad's parents because they were already married when Dad come along, but they wasn't. Richard was Dad's brother.
Yeah.
And
This is
so-
different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, being
24
25,
years,
20, yeah, that's
24
huge.
years.
So, when they got married, Uncle Richard built his house. Him and Aunt Hallie lived here.
Lived here.
Lived here. This is the house.
This started out as a home.
Yeah, 1947.
Okay.
And so, and you can see by the beams, this was their living room. There's actually a window in here. If you take the paneling down, you can see there's a window there. This is their living room window. And
Wow.
so this beam right here,
Just all the way through.
no, this beam to this beam, that was the living room.
Okay.
And this was the bedroom to the TV, because that's where the building actually stopped,
Where was your kid? Where was their kitchen?
right there.
Right there behind
The
you.
kitchen is actually original. I mean, you can take that paneling off back there on that wall where Dad's cars are, and you expose all of the kitchen stuff.
And the pictures on the wall, you shown those?
Yeah. And the bathroom is original. That's Uncle Richard's tile.
So this back here was what was added to the store.
This next section was added after Dad first bought it. And then the stockroom was added at a later time. In the 70s, but, see, because Dad didn't buy it until 72.
I'm sure
But-
you bought this store in 72.
72. But when Uncle Richard was in the CBC's Navy
Yeah,
in Alaska,
that's right. I just remember this story. Yeah.
and he helped to make the roads in Alaska.
The Alaska Elkhorn Highway.
Yes.
Wow.
Richard
That's-
worked on the Elkhorn Highway.
That's what he did.
That's his picture behind you, the black and
that's
white.
Richard. And that picture is in Alaska. That was taken while he was in Alaska.
I need to get a copy of that.
So, she was by herself.
That's Aunt
They didn't
Hallie
have
up
children. So she opened from here forward was the store.
Okay.
And she had a potbelly stove in the corner, and she had benches, and you can talk to several in the neighborhood that are old enough to remember it. I'm not. But they would come in and sit down and be able to stay warm. And she had a long glass top counter. Everything that she sold was behind the counter.
The idea.
Yeah. Well, the store was from here going forward because she was still living in this.
Ah.
She still lived in, her and Richard still lived in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from here forward was a store
Okay.
with a long counter and benches and that
Now,
stove.
who are we talking about again? This is Jesse.
No, this is Hallie and Richard.
Yeah.
This is Hallie and Richard.
Yeah, my grandmother never worked. I mean, she raised children.
Yeah,
She raised
worked on
children.
the
She
farm.
worked plenty.
But
but-
This is Shorty's brother.
This is the brother.
Yeah, this is Dad's
This
oldest
is
brother.
Dad's older brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Do you have pictures of that? What it looked like? Do you?
Somewhere.
Okay.
But
Okay.
finding them is a different story. But this part was opened in 49,
Oh,
1949.
That's so cool.
And so,
They lived here for a couple of years before she opened.
yes, yeah. And she just needed something to do, you know, and there wasn't nothing around here.
Mm-hmm.
The Westmorelands had a little red store over there in the corner, but that's long since
And
gone.
this was considered in those days the Hopewell community.
This was Hopewell. Yeah,
This was Hopewell.
yeah,
The Hopewell Church.
Mm.
yeah. This was the road was Hopewell Church Road. That
Yeah.
was the name of the road, Hopewell
Oh,
Church
it
Road.
was?
Yeah.
It wasn't Pleasant Ridge. It was
No, it wasn't
Pleasant
Pleasant
Ridge.
Ridge. No, it was Hopewell Church
Oh,
Road.
that's interesting.
Yeah. For
Was
years.
this-
I don't remember when they changed it.
Was this road here, Carlson Dairy?
Carson Farms.
It was Carlson Farm.
Yeah, because when you cross the bridge here,
Yeah.
there's an old white house up on the hill.
Yeah.
That was the Carlsons. And that was a
Oh, is
working
that where
farm.
they lived? Oh.
Yes, they lived there. And there's some of them are still living.
Yeah. It's like a
And
big
they
old
built 'cause they
mansion up
looked down
there.
on the reservoir.
He has a antique furniture.
Okay.
They dealt in antique furniture
Okay.
later on after the farm.
Oh,
You know, farms are dying things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had, if you go down Wendover and make a right on Church Street, their last studio was right there on the right, across from Office Depot. So go down Wendover
Yep.
to Church,
Yep.
make a right,
Yep.
and right there on the right,
Oh.
the second block,
Mhm.
it was Carlson Antiques. That's the name
oh,
of it.
that's where they had this one.
And that's where they had the last store that they had.
Yeah.
They had several locations, but that was the last one. But I don't know if he still got it open. But Stacy, you know who I'm talking about. He comes in and gets dip and bubble gum. You know who I'm talking about? He actually lives, he sold the farm because it was too much for him. He's a single man.
Carlson, this is Carlson.
This is Carlson, yeah. And he lives where he lives on the back side of the property. You go in up on Francisco
Yeah.
and go into his house. He lives in the little house that the help lived in.
Okay.
That
This little house that what?
the help lived in. You know,
Oh,
back
yeah,
then you
yeah.
had help when
Yeah.
you had a big house like that.
Yeah.
You had help. You had a maid or a butler or whatever, and they had their separate house out to the back of the property.
This is
And
back by
so-
the golf course, right back in by the golf course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you go to the top of the hill, you make a right.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
Francisco, isn't it?
Yeah. I know.
Or is that Troy Hill?
I think
Yeah.
it is Francis.
It's either Francisco or Troy Hill. But anyway, he lives down that road, and he lives in the
Yeah.
house.
So he's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive. He's probably in his late 60s, early 70s.
Who was it that built the original golf course that eventually became Greensboro?
I don't know.
That's
My dad could tell you.
I'll talk to the club people who built the whole.
Yeah, they'll be able to tell you, but I can't tell you that, but
So this, let me ask on streets, this was Hopewell Church Road.
Oakville Church
It
Road,
ran up to Summerfield.
yeah,
And this was Carlson
Farms.
Road. And this was Hamburg Mill, probably,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was Hamburg Mill.
Do you know what Lewiston was? Was that?
Lewiston's always been Lewiston.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
the Lewises live down there. They still live down there.
Okay.
The Lewises.
They're black family?
Huh?
White
White?
family?
No, they're white.
What?
Kenny Lewis him and his sister both still live
Lewiston Road.
on
Okay.
Lewiston Road.
Okay.
Yeah. But back then, there wasn't nobody out here. So Grandma and Miss Lewis was best friends, and there wasn't no phone, so they would meet. They would walk halfway and meet and talk, and then walk home. Because that's the only way you could communicate back then. You didn't have a telephone.
They didn't
Most
have
people
telephone.
didn't have bathrooms
They didn't
around
have
here.
telephone. No.
I mean, my mother grew up in a house that didn't have a bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
So they're the folks that came in 1910.
Grandma did, but Uncle Richard and Aunt Hallie opened in 47. I mean, built in 47 and opened in 49.
So when you're talking about people not having a bathroom or phone,
That was my Granny Williams. That was my other side.
oh, that was the other side.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. It's not like my mother. My mother.
I don't think my grandparents got a bathroom until they moved across the road. I think this old house didn't. But back then, this was this was country, and you didn't have stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, you went to the well and drew the water and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So,
Will she make any money doing this?
Aunt Hallie,
Yeah.
I'm sure she did.
Yeah.
What I don't know, but
She stayed in business.
she stayed in business, and she was. Well, you can read Facebook. Everybody loved Aunt Hallie. Aunt Hallie was good to people, like my dad.
Yeah.
Aunt Hallie is actually related to Mark Brown.
She's Mark's
Oh,
aunt.
she is?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
She's Mark's
aunt.
aunt.
Yeah. Richard's my uncle. Hallie was his aunt.
How does that work?
They just married.
Well, I'll get Mark to figure it out.
Yeah. Mark knows all about it. When Mark was a teenager, he mowed my grandma's yard.
Yeah, you told that story. Oh, that's great. Great story. I love the one you told me the other day when I was in here, that you used to open on Sundays.
Yeah.
The main reason you opened on Sundays was so your dad and mother, I guess,
Yeah.
right, could see their relatives and friends. And
Yeah.
they would all come in and
Yeah. After church,
after church.
Mom and Dad went to Pleasant Ridge, so they were in church at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they'd come home, Mama would fix him a little lunch, and then him and her would come down the road and open at 1 o'clock. And they was open from 1 to 6 on Sundays. And it wasn't one of those deals where it wasn't like you go to the store to get anything. It was a social club on Sunday. People would come, and the couple that owned Big Burger,
The one
Oh.
downtown?
it was then Lee Street,
Yeah.
Gay City Boulevard
Yeah,
now.
I know.
They would come just about every Sunday.
Really?
And my mother loved to scratch tickets. She loved. Dad fussed all the time, and then he'd laugh at her. But she liked to scratch, and that couple liked to scratch, and they would come on Sundays and hang out with Mom and Dad for a couple hours and scratch tickets and talk, and and that's what it was when it wasn't a real business on Sunday. It was more of a social gathering place after church.
Great story.
To
Where did they go to church? Did they go to this?
Pleasant Ridge.
Huh?
Pleasant Ridge.
Pleasant Ridge.
Yeah, where the church is on
I
the
thought your
right.
family was connected with this church.
My dad was raised here. My dad was raised in Hopewell.
Okay.
My mother was raised in Northwest Baptist. That's where her parents are buried. Up on Alcorn.
Baptist, Wesleyan, Methodist.
Mm-hmm.
Baptist went out.
Yep. So that's where my other grandparents are buried, the Williams side.
Okay.
But then it wasn't Northwest Baptist. It was Honey in the Rock.
Honey?
Honey in the Rock.
That's what it was
That was the
previously
name of
called?
That was the name of the church.
Honey in the Rock Church.
Honey in the Rock. when my grandfather was
Where
there.
was that? Down on?
It's Edgefield, it's the original, I mean, it's still there. They don't hold church in that building, that's a daycare now. But it's Edgefield and Alcorn.
Okay.
Edgefield and Elkhorn, okay. right
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah. You go Alcorn, and it's the church that's in the corner there. Where the daycare is here on Alcorn Road, that was the old church.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
But the new church is right there on Alcorn. I mean, on Edgefield.
Great story.
And when did your parents buy this from?
1972. The July 4th weekend of
Did
1972.
your mother work here too then?
Oh, Mom, that's the only, it was just my mom and dad. They didn't hire employees.
Okay.
They never had employees. Never.
What's your mother pass away?
January the 6th of 16.
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that happened just after we came down.
Yep, we lost her in January of
They
16.
lived down the road here?
1 mile of Pleasant
I
Ridge Road,
remember seeing her early on, seeing Shorty's truck down there.
2527.
There's two little
So what
But-
is your dad's real name? I mean, is
Harold.
Harold. Okay.
Harold.
Harold.
Do you know his middle name?
Yeah, but I can't tell you.
Is he
Okay.
the shortest one of the bunch? Is that how he got Shorty?
Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like his name. And I don't tell people what his, but my mother, they were married 62 years. And she called him Harold.
Call it what?
Harold.
Harold.
Harold. She had a funny way of saying it. She said Harold.
He had a funny way of saying her name too.
He called her Geneva.
So what is your mom's name? What
Geneva?
What's your mom?
Geneva.
Okay.
Geneva.
Geneva.
Like
Okay.
Geneva.
Like Switzerland.
Like Geneva.
And her maiden name?
Williams.
Williams?
Williams.
Okay.
And she grew up on Bunch Road.
Okay.
But he didn't say Geneva, he said Geneva.
I walked in here one time and we were talking, and he said, I said, what do they grow back there? He said, baccy. They grew baccy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there, baccy? What the hell is baccy? Tobacco. Oh, I got it.
Yeah. He twisted words like that. He didn't,
They did it deliberately.
but Mama had said his name so long that she had her own way of saying. Most people say Harold. I mean, not Harold. That was Mama's name.
Harold.
Most people say it Harold.
They said
But
Harold.
Mama,
Harold.
she called him Harold. It took me years to perfect that.
Well, that's a little North Carolina.
But that's the way that's the way it sounded.
Yeah.
And I tried to learn how to say it because I wanted to say it like she did because it was so unique.
That's awesome.
And so when I'd get upset at him after she passed away,
Do you remember?
I'd say, Harold, you're gonna make me act like Geneva. And of course, when I'd say something like that, he'd calm right down. He would be, he'd laugh and we'd be back on an even playing field because, it was hard for him to lose her. They'd been together 65 years. And because they dated 3 years before they got married.
Did he go to school, through high school?
No. Didn't either one of them finish high school. They both were out by the 9th grade, which back then that was common.
That was expected, probably.
Well, yeah, if you worked on a farm, and Mama did, and of course he did too.
Yeah.
But my mother went back. Dad had his first heart attack in 1987. July of 1987 was his first heart attack. And so the doctor told Mama, said, that place is too much stress, get him out of it. So they leased the store out for 15 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from January 1 of 88. For 15 years, they leased it to Mark Bell, that run Belco on 150. Him and two of his brothers run this store. They leased this store. They leased Northwest Superette up on 68. They owned 5 Points in Burlington. And then after they leased this store and started running it, they built Belco on 150. There at Lake Brent Road. That's them. So they're out of the store business now. They're all retired. Well, one of them has passed away, but
What did your dad and mom do while they leased the store?
went to the mountains.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Kind of retired.
Yeah, they pretty much, yeah. And Dad couldn't stand it because he'd never been without something to do. And so when I was a kid, actually when I was born, he worked for John Christopher Enterprises. John Christopher that owned this farm down here on Crossing Dairy Road before the bridge on the left, that big farm, that was John Christopher. He did commercial plumbing.
So then
He owned John Christopher Enterprises. He owned Industrial Power and Process. He owned Associated Mechanical Process. How long have you been in Summerfield?
Like 2016.
How long have you been out here?
2015.
Yeah.
Okay, so Burlington Industries was on Friendly,
Yep.
and it had that great big water fountain in front of it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Okay, my dad dug the piping for that. He run a backhoe for John Christopher
Okay.
before he come in here. And he even worked for John after they come in here.
Yeah.
Mom run the store by herself until they could get up and running good. A couple of years, he stayed with John. But that's what he did. He run a backhoe. He run heavy equipment for John Christopher. And so when they leased the store, when Dad had his heart attack, 6 months went by and Dad was crazy. He didn't have anything to do and Mama couldn't do anything with him. And John told him, he said, Shorty, come on down here to the farm and you mow or do whatever, you mess with the cows or you just fiddle down here at the farm. Do anything you want to do, but that'll give you something to do. And, you know, because Dad couldn't sit at home. He was about to lose his mind. And, of course, Mama was about to lose hers too because she was having to put up with him.
Yeah, put up with it.
And him whining because he didn't have anything to do. So he started working for John Christopher again. Not anything major because